This is a composed puzzle from 1977. It's white to play and win, but it might not be as simple as you think. White's pawns are going forward in this direction. What's the winning move for white? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, there's really three moves that come to mind, right? You have to push one of these pawns forward. This one really makes no sense because you lose this pawn with check, and then when you move, you lose this pawn, and then you lose this pawn, and black still has a queen, and you lose the game very quickly. So you really have two options, and it kind of looks like they're the same, but they're not. And it almost looks like they're the same because if you push a pawn, the king, let's just say, moves over, you can follow it up with a fork. And regardless of which pawn you pushed, you could get the same fork. But the outcome is not the same, and here is why. After takes, black's going to win this pawn, and you're left with the king and a pawn against a king. And this is where understanding your king and pawn endgame principles is very important, because watch what happens in this scenario. The king, sorry, it's white's turn. We move forward. The king takes. We move forward, and now black plays a very critical move, king to e7. And black is essentially waiting, just waiting for us to come forward with our king. Because if you know anything about king and pawn endgames, you'll know that you have to keep your king in front of the pawn. As soon as you push a pawn forward like this, it's immediately a draw. If black knows the correct technique, it's a guaranteed draw. We've talked about this numerous times on the channel. But if you can keep your king in front of the pawn, that's when you have winning chances, but only if you can get the opposition. But in this case, if we bring our king forward, now black steps up. Black gets what's called opposition, where they're mirroring our king, boxing us out from moving forward. And every time we step to the side, they step to the side. And they just are going to keep doing this until eventually we say, okay, we have to do something else. We push the pawn, and it's a draw. Okay, this goes into the drawing endgame. So you might say, well, what else could we do differently? Well, it goes back to that initial decision of which pawn to push forward. See, when we push this pawn, the outcome is that black's king ends up taking the d7 pawn and is on the d file. But if we back up and we push the b7 pawn, which by the way is the correct move, the only winning move, now when the king goes over, check, we get the fork, we get the same thing, takes. The king has to recapture and step over to the b file instead of the d file. You say, well, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's actually a huge deal, and here is why. We bring our king up, and black can try to come over and do the same thing as before. If we go here, they would be able to get a draw, but we play king to e4, and they are not able to reach the square that they need to go to. They need to land here to get the opposition. They're too far away. You can see the difference, the significance of which pawn we pushed. And now it doesn't really matter where they go. We have the option to come up and we can start escorting our pawn. And whenever black tries to, let's just say, get in the way, we are the one who gets the opposition, which is going to eventually force black to the side, which is exactly what we want. And we bring our king up. We push our pawn and we will win. Okay, so you needed to understand the significance of the opposition in the king and pawn ending to understand, going back to the original position, which pawn you needed to push first. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. There's lots of puzzles like this on the channel, so make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you next time. As always, thanks for watching. Stay sharp, play smart, and take care.